The trees are green and the flowers are blossoming. It's all out in the spring as we look at the color, the energy, and the zeal that characterize our golden province. Spring to summer period is a period in which everybody is going out. Events are happening. Heritage sites and our amusement parks are receiving visitors, but the weather and the skies in the golden province of Gauteng just shout, "Come visit us, come visit us." Welcome to another edition of Gauteng Lifve. My name is Barba Gaoganediwe, your champion host. And in this episode, like we always do, we are bringing you one of our change makers and taste makers, our leaders in our heritage, national heritage space. And our guest is Jane Mufamadi. Sis Jane, welcome to Gauteng Lifve. Finally, we got you into the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited.
Yeah, we always start with tracing back, growing up, finishing high school, and how you related, with Johannesburg, Gauteng. It will have not even been a province back then. Your recollection on how just what Johannesburg and Gauteng represented back then?
I grew up in Limpopo.
Yeah.
So growing up, I hardly came to Johannesburg.
Yeah, unless you come check your visitors,
Yes,
relatives.
so my uncle's the one person whom at the time I knew who worked here in Joburg.
Uh-huh.
So coming here would be that visit, which rarely happened. So it was once in a while.
Yeah.
Of course, it was mesmerizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is my earlier recollection. Completely different from
Back home.
what we have now, and obviously completely shocking culture shock compared to back home Limpopo.
Yeah. And now you come, you visit, and you go back. What were some of the takeouts going back now? You had a chance to visit. You will have by then been what we call VFR, visiting friends and relatives. So you will have visited, your relatives here in the Golden Province and the city. And now you are going back. The schools are reopening and you are sharing the moments. And they are asking you probably to write an essay about the school holidays.
Yes, definitely. Visiting would be a rare moment of pride, and you could not wait to go back home, share the experiences, the tall buildings that we didn't really see back home, and of course then later on school trips.
Yeah.
And you will basically write those essays.
And you went to the zoo. Did you also visit the zoo?
The zoo was almost the only other place you would visit, actually, interestingly so.
And reminiscing on that, and now, and I'm trying to build up to your current role, and you only get to visit the zoo, or if you are lucky, you go to the Ren show. Not much of access to museums and heritage sites. Not that they didn't exist, although at that time they were representing and preserving a specific dispensation back then. Was it because that was only what was availed to you or whoever was planning the trip, or you think there was a deliberate attempt to preserve them for the privileged few?
I think both. The concept of heritage sites museum never even emerged or was spoken about at all, especially coming at the time here in Johannesburg in particular. Even the relatives, my uncles, will never talk about visiting a museum. I think it was just a foreign concept.
Yeah.
So it was not much. The zoo was the most popular one, of course, and when you are lucky, once, the Ren show. But other than that, hardly mention of heritage sites or museums in particular as a place of interest to visit at all. Although then comparing that maybe back home, also more or less the same, but there were a few heritage sites that were popular that we would visit. So I wonder whether it was the issue of what the museums represented and political consciousness, or it was just pure and sheer ignorance. Yeah.
And on the part of those that were curating, creating, and I'm thinking back even myself, visiting, and there was never a deliberate, curation and itinerary development that you will go to this place, you will go to this space. Will you say that also shaped in the culture, because that affected the majority of South Africans, and it became generational. As a result, there's a tradition that we follow. The holidays, you are shoved into a car and dropped at Gogo, and then you are fetched before the schools reopen, compared to our white counterparts, whom a holiday, a school vacation represented something completely different, and how therefore such spaces will continue to have increased visitation, more popularity, but also skewed cultural reference.
I think so. I think obviously the past shaped also probably the decisions by many, especially the African majority, whether to visit heritage sites or not, especially if heritage sites would have been viewed either as offensive and or not representing us, where people did not see themselves in it. So it was not a place of pride where people wanted to go. And of course, probably others would have felt this is the place for the elite.
Yeah.
And the black majority, we did not form that layer of citizens who were elite or who could go to museums. And it seems we carried that culture to the present, because we still find that hardly the majority, South Africans in particular, Africans don't really visit heritage sites for leisure.
Yeah.
It's only when there is a program,
there's an event
or special event, then they will come.
Yeah.
So I think that has somewhat shaped our current behavioral patterns, whether to visit or not.
Yeah, and the influence of the curriculum also, and I guess now looking at what's happening with a bit of transformed curriculum, there was not even anything that will, through curriculum, drive you to go there, because you are asked about abstract things that some of them are just mythical and not real things, therefore what you get taught, if it's a representation of what is outside, you are almost forced to want to go there, because you stand a better chance if you have visited that site to actually do well in that test or that exam that you will be writing.
Definitely. I think also that gap within the curriculum contributed and contributes today in terms of that. You will also note that even courses like museum studies were not so popular then, even though there were social sciences broadly. And of course, anthropology would have been one of the popular courses. But I think that gap in the curriculum contributed to not exposing the younger generation through education. I suppose if it was prominent even for educational visits, that would have encouraged and therefore gradually shaped the mindset in terms of the relevance also. And what you mention is very, for me, important and critical, whether generally learners are able to relate what they learn at school to their day-to-day lives, and whether there is that synergy. And if there is no synergy, then it's difficult then to integrate that into one's life, even in terms of career pathing, but also in terms of the concept of what we understand as leisure.
Yeah. And also the structure, and you are referring to, back in the days, some popular sites within your village, within your community, but the spatial design and location of some of the sites equally makes it a journey. And an expensive one for that, for that matter, because they will have been in spaces that have been dominated and for the current curriculum captured. Therefore, we will then erect a statue to showcase our dominance and claiming of this space. And because this period of oppression and colonialism took so long, you actually had many statues, because there will be the generational of leaders that came in. So you will have, if there's a person called Transvaal or Pretoria's or Van Rieberg or whatever, so you'll end up having 5 or 6 statues. Then they decide, actually each has a history, and let's house this history in a museum now and create miniature statues, and then that's how the museums got built. And compare that to where spaces where everybody goes to, than in the space where we lived and live, where some form of authority and heritage lies with the tribal authority. Which still needs the master for recognition. Therefore, the Bapedi, whatever clan there, doesn't have its own museum or heritage space where you are able to visit. Is this a fair characterization of the space and how we ended up actually now having these spaces located almost out of reach of the vast majority?
Definitely. I think that is a contributing factor, whereby the location says a lot and contributes also to how even the locals utilizes the space. And with the socioeconomic imperatives and economic challenges that people are hardly struggling to survive, for one to just wake up, take a taxi, pay money, go and pay entry fee as well, while you're grappling with the issue of bread and butter, may also be a contributing factor. And as you say, the exclusive nature and design of heritage sites may contribute. People may just automatically feel like, maybe I don't belong to this big, imposing structure. What is in there? Maybe it has its own people. And hence, some communities will have what you call open air museums, spaces that people can just walk in, walk around. And some will integrate that within the public parks, where people can go. As you go to rest, then you move around, then you learn. So it's probably also how the concept of heritage sites mean to many people. They are natural sites that are naturally integrated and embedded to communities and or to a particular time. But there are those infrastructure that were purposely built to house, as you say, either statues. And also the question will be, am I willing to pay my money to see something that does not resonate with who I am and my history and all? Maybe something that reminds me of the pain. So it looks also at how you look at it.
And will you say, now looking at the now and, for example, the National Heritage Site, Freedom Park that you represent, and many others that have been established at the dawn of democracy, will you say we have done enough collectively to not necessarily reverse, because you can't reverse heritage and history, but to create much more open and representative spaces of our heritage that in its nature will then start reversing that unfortunate environment where the vast majority can't even access nor relate with what it's supposed to be their pride and joy?
I think we have made steps, positive steps, but I think a lot still needs to be done, especially amongst communities. I'm aware that what is called the legacy projects, which are the post-democratic era heritage sites and monuments, especially honoring the leaders, the many museums named after our outstanding leaders, and obviously places like Freedom Park, which was conceptualized as that collective and inclusive space for all, not for one tribe, not for one race, not for one religion or culture. So I think these are positive steps, but there is a lot that can still be done, especially amongst communities and where they live. Because if certain sites are established where the communities live, this will be something they identify with. How do we begin? If we're talking about leaders and heroes, like it was common in the past, what about the community heroes in that township, in that village?
In their collective.
In their collective. And as you encourage, because these are the people that community knows personally. And or the people who are related to somebody I know and I talk to.
100.
But again, as you engage in that format, you contribute to the local economic development through that local site, heritage site, amongst and within the people.
And for me, that's a very fascinating, because again, in the quest to create national heritage, identity and sites and symbols, what qualifies as national, which is supposed to be a representation of all in a very diverse and quite unique and polarized space and country. So I'm in Boipatong with all the atrocities that happens there, the painful stories that we know, and the gallant resistance of that community, and how then does the Boipatong Museum, does it assume a national museum because of the national character of what they were representing, or does it assume a local museum compared to Constitution Hill and Freedom Park that happens to be in city centers? And to what extent does even our own structural space settings, perpetuate this, that therefore there's if it's local, it's a low class museum heritage site. If it's a dropping, it's an important one, and not just in South Africa. I mean, even in the world. And also, I guess that's why cities are also not the same. But would you say this is how our heritage has been housed, and to what extent does this then perpetuate the division that we are seeing, or the inferiority that then characterizes with me being local and the other one national and the other one world heritage?
Yes. For me, it is the impact. It shouldn't be about the location. You can have Boipatong as a national, and it may somewhat take also an international character. It is about the history behind the place and the space and the impact. Boipatong's event had a national impact in particular, and if well motivated, it would qualify in my view. It's how you motivate, it's how you project and present the story. Just like Sharpeville. If I'm not mistaken, it's now on the serial World Heritage Sites, because what happened there had a national and international impact. So I think the location should not be a determining factor whether this is a local, provincial or national heritage site. The impact, if there is a compelling case to be made, then it can be motivated to take that national character. And in itself, that will boost the confidence of those that contributed and or the history around. It also assists communities then to take that responsibility and ownership.
Would you say, and back into the location issue, and I know you as an not just a practitioner, but an activist in this space. And I'm looking at, for example, the location of Freedom Park. Some Spolanyana community there, don't know what is the story now, but there's also a huge national body, Stats SA, I'm looking at going back to Buipatong Memorial, there's literally a house at the back and it has a back room where somebody lives, opposite a heritage site, and looking at the union buildings, probably houses are fine, there's buildings, there's hotels. So all these are found in different settings and locations. But the profile and the appreciation and the seeding still tend to go to those that are far from the people. What do you think is the cause of this? I still believe there are people in Orlando East and West that have not been to Hector Peterson Memorial. Is it because it's a familiarity issue? I pass it every day. I'll see it. It doesn't go anywhere.
I think it's how we profile and market. But also I think at a government level, there are lessons to be learned. Firstly, how we invest in heritage and also our realization on how heritage sites can contribute to economic emancipation. And to move away from, in fact, one of the projects led by the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, the Resistance and Liberation Heritage Route, what Freedom Park is leading a stream called Alternative Forms of Memorialization, where we are challenging the rethink in the approach. Firstly, just questioning whether building imposing structures that are costly to maintain is the way to go and it's sustainable, as opposed to looking at alternative infrastructure development that is easy to maintain, that is accessible.
Maybe even open air.
And open air museums, as I said, especially within communities. And also, in that project, the primary objective, which I think government thought well, is to link and to map the routes within communities. And I remember one of our submissions were also to say all these stories are interrelated, so we need to develop a map of heritage sites.
A route.
Yes, a route from communities, maybe culminating into entities like Freedom Park.
Got you.
Because Freedom Park then comprises everyone's history and heritage. However, where does that history start? It starts from communities.
100.
And how do we link back to the community that contributes to that narrative, but also invest around the same community? So I do think, yes, one lesson that government can learn is how to decentralize heritage sites, make them accessible. Of course, there is a need to target still the affluent market. But we're missing out on the entrepreneurial development around these entities and heritage sites. The spin-offs that can alleviate in economic emancipation while preserving the history, the heritage, and allowing communities to take ownership in the preservation of their own history and heritage. So there is a bit of a dissonance that needs to come together.
And on entrepreneurial and the spin-offs, and so you don't have to spend on a taxi money fare, and a bus to go all out. It's in is in that community. That community, the stories that are housed in that community that shaped whatever that is being showcased. Now you are able to get a storyteller. You are able to get a protagonist from the. Even if it was my grandfather would have shared with me, if it's not there, I'm able to still narrate from almost an intimate point of view and not have extremely curated and guided stuff where everybody who's narrating and can relate to whatever that, almost reading from a script that has been written for the storyteller or for the guide in that space. And the importance of localized heritage spaces in a manner that is sustainable, which I love that project becomes there, that you are able to aggregate community beneficiation, you are able to preserve the stories, you are able to even get intergenerations to be out of that. In modern language, or in the musical and space, they will say royalties get accrued, through the generations that are there. You are responsible. You are responsible for the Freedom Park. I still want to argue that the Freedom Park is South Africa's national heritage site. And you articulated how it was conceptualized, because you are also in the capital city of Tshwane, Pitori. Therefore, just like anywhere in the world where the capital city is, there is something that is structures that showcases the country. Yes. And I guess that is why it's the capital city. Not every city is the capital city. Therefore, there must be something that represents that space there. That is why Home Affairs is in Pretoria. You are certified dead and classified born. In there. Is this the position that you guys are feeling, accepting, and running with as the country's national heritage museum?
Yes, we are. In fact, we are what you call a presidential legacy project.
Yeah.
Amongst the legacy projects, we are the premier in that, while others were specific.
Yeah.
Let's say you have Mandela Museum, you have Inkosi Albert Luthuli Museum.
Yeah.
So Freedom Park is that all-encompassing heritage sites. And yes, we take that national. We're a declared national heritage site. Interestingly, the location of Freedom Park was specifically chosen right in the middle of, on the other side you have the Voortrekker Monument, exactly. On the other side you've got UNISA. Then right from Freedom Park you can see the seat of government, the union buildings. And when you are at Freedom Park, you have a 360 view of the city.
Yeah.
So from any side you can have a view. But I think that symbolism, the dialogue, the move from the past to the present, and what the union building represent today, the democratic dispensation, and of course UNISA being the Center for Learning and Education. So symbolically, that hill was chosen for that, to say it breaks basically the barriers, and it unites and interlinks everything and everyone together. And I think that is the message for reconciliation and the coming together of the democratic dispensation. Interestingly, that hill was also one of the locations for the South African War, the Anglo-Boer War, the issue about the salvo.
Yes.
So there is that also story that is also little known about
and the heroics of actually Kgosi Tshwane.
Yes, that is another angle space. As well. So it is the bringing together of all those narratives, so that what comes out of Freedom Park then represent everyone. So you visit Freedom Park, you find yourself represented one way or the other. These stories are all told and they are given equal prominence.
Yeah. Will you say and I'm basing this on the fact that we celebrate the 16th of December as our Reconciliation Day, and I remember and you are right. I mean how Freedom Park was conceptualized, the prominent role play like by, for example, President Mbeki, in the reopening and the seeding of the park. Will you say the country understands and appreciates all that we have said, or it relates collectively with Freedom Park just like any other heritage site and museum?
I think we have work to do. There is a fair understanding by the majority of people, especially those who have been to Freedom Park and or those who have engaged us on different levels, even without necessarily visiting. But I think more work still needs to be done in terms of understanding that Freedom Park is for everyone, irrespective of the cultural background, religious, race or creed or belief systems, even politically. There is that sense that when you come, you get exposed that this is not about a particular political party's story. It is about a South African story. Yeah. So we are in that journey. And it is also in how Freedom Park was conceptualized, where, in fact, I think about 2 years, they just consulted the nation, women's organization, youth, religious leaders, academia, political parties, civil society movements. So all the voices contributed to the making of Freedom Park. But interestingly, it is about the history, the heritage, the culture, indigenous knowledge systems, and the concepts of spirituality that is integrated. And one thing about Freedom Park, there was a deliberate decision on the design and aesthetics. Yeah. You spoke about imposing. If you look at many monuments and memorials, there are these tall, imposing
structures. So,
in the making of Freedom Park, the elders advised that you must, in line with the African cosmology and belief systems, we must negotiate with the environment. So Freedom Park kinds of blends into the environment and negotiate. So the symbolism about that in terms
and the conversation is ongoing.
And the conversation is ongoing, And the choice of the material. If you look at the interpretive center, the museum itself, if you like, it's probably, without a doubt, is the biggest copper building in South Africa.
Yes, in South Africa, I've seen that,
The elders' wisdom is that copper will rust in time and blend with the environment. Again, that environmental understanding from an indigenous knowledge point of view, that you want a natural site. You want a site even in architecture and the colors that you use to represent who we are as Africans, because Freedom Park represents the rebirth of a nation that is united.
Will you say
diversity.
Our elders and their character in nature? I mean, some of the founding, designers, the Dr. Serotes and and their own posture and influence, being able to bring in African spirituality, being able to bring history and heritage, all of this encompassing actually played out, in its multiplicity into what became the end product.
Yes, it did. In fact, obviously, Professor Serote played a critical role. One memory I don't forget is that at the beginning, there was an architectural competition.
Okay.
And international firms from the UK, from the USA, and all over applied and submitted various designs. But it didn't resonate with the spirit and essence of what they wanted to do. And subsequently, interestingly, a South African company, which was a joint venture, Mashabane Rose, and many others, but South Africans, because South Africans had to come together.
Yes, and then say
understood the spirit and the essence as South African, and in their diversity as well. And that these are the team that then eventually, in terms of design and how the design came about, there were many meetings with people like Ubaba Credo Mutwa, Mama Grace Masuku, Mama Noria Mawasa. So the design actually emerged from the wisdom of our organic wisdom keepers.
Yeah. And going back to our point earlier on about the location and leveraging on the city. And the seat of government, the capital city, and having chosen that specific place where you get the 360 view, but right in front of it, hill by hill, at the top, there is an existing memorial that represented Afrikanerdom and all its characterization there for centuries sits there. Now you have these two sides sitting and facing each other side by side. And now looking at that as almost a combined precinct to actually reinforce what you are saying about an inclusive space and aggregation of the different cultures, experiences and heritage. That journey and how has been the reception by all the partners, and how that gets to shape how our country's capital city, which is our window to the world, get to present itself through these institutions.
I think that's an interesting journey, and interestingly, we have a connecting road with the Voortrekker Monument, and we call it deliberately the Reconciliation Road because there was a lot of debate. I mean, I remember other people at the time felt, no, we must demolish the Voortrekker Monument. It doesn't represent us. But in the wisdom of the elders, again. We're saying, whether good or bad, this is part of our history, this is part of the heritage. And what are the lessons we need to learn? The Voortrekker still represent a section of South African communities. We may not agree with the substance and or maybe sometimes the narrative, but the fact is there was a history and a point in time where that happened. And we need to remember them. How we remember and what we do with the knowledge, it's a challenge to all of us as South Africans. So there is always that. And the same did happen also to Freedom Park at some point. Others saying it is an ANC park and so forth. But what is exciting is that most of the people, black and white, when they come to Freedom Park, they see themselves. And some will even tell us to say, I thought here you were very exclusive. It's about black people
but I am now,
and or a political party. But you begin to see a change and that exposure to say, by the way, we are also represented here. And for us, we also emphasize the fact that the liberation struggle was fought by all. It was not a black struggle. There were many white people who were privileged, but who chose to stand with the oppressed. And they sacrificed the freedoms they had at the time so that the majority can be free. So this is the story of diverse South Africans. I mean, 1956 is a case in example. The four leaders of that struggle were across the color line. And that shows the possibilities of what we can be as a nation. And there are lots of such stories and anecdotes within the liberation struggle. Even if we look at the prominent leaders, they were across the color line.
Our liberation struggle was truly a national liberation struggle that set to free and create a democratic and prosperous South Africa. And this is now showcased and housed in this National Heritage Site, Freedom Park. And let's take a short break. And as we take a short break, let's see the beauty and the splendor of this National Heritage Site.
Freedom Park, a place where we honor those who endured pain so we can experience the joy of freedom. Nelson Mandela. Freedom Park was born as a national and international icon of humanity and freedom. It represents the South African tale in the voice of the South African people. It exemplifies and celebrates the unity found in this country's diverse nature.
Welcome back to Gauteng Lifve, your platform where we share, tell, and aggregate everything about the visitor economy and how it interfaces with other subsectors, it be heritage, sports, culture, and the infrastructure that is around this specific sector, the visitor economy that we are all about. I'm still continuing with my guest, CEO of Freedom Park, Jane. Before we took a short break, we were deep in articulating the significance of this site and now the hub, and not just the reconciliation road that combines the two. and I guess it also has to do with the heritage and how far long the stories has been shared. We still have the disparities in terms of the actual visitor numbers and the actual visits, for some reasons, for other obvious reasons, between the Voortrekker Monument and Freedom Park. What are some of the efforts to really combine this in a manner that each could leverage from the structural design, the settings, and the locality? I know, for example, the recently held Walk the Talk. We will park on the other side, then go through the reconciliation road before you go into the start. But for ordinary groups that are coming into, are there deliberate initiative to blend the two, including pricing systems that allows for dual experience and shared experiences?
We do have a memorandum of understanding with the Voortrekker Monument. However, and we've done some wonderful programs together jointly over the years. But I must say that post-COVID, I think we have not done so much together, which is something we are revisiting now. Okay. But we always say, obviously, they've been there longer. They are more than 80.
That's what I'm saying. The
80 years old.
Yeah.
But we realize there is a lot we can learn from their experience over the years, and that is something that we believe will benefit. Those aspects like joint ticketing, we're exploring that, of course. But we must also remember that we are a government entity and they're a privately run entity. So there are some of the nuances. But for us, the fact that we have that memorandum, it shows a commitment to work together and to learn from each other, which is something that we are looking at and exploring going further.
Now that you have mentioned it, your take on privatization of heritage, and I get to see this playing itself out and getting a call and say, hey, Baba, can you get this place to open? They say it's a holiday, they are closed. And the patterns of travel and how our travel and leisure experience is set up is that we do the weekends and public holidays. and also on the other side, the staff needs to rest and the like. At what point do we blend this together? Because others looks at it as business. Which is allowed, I guess. But also, how do we then blend this to create that access that we so much need, but also allow for collaboration and cross-selling of the stories. So that we are able to leverage from each other. The more we keep the visitors in our destination, the more they spend another day, the more they book bed nights, the more the revenue get plowed back into the destination. Your take on that, and not just Fort Rake Monument. I mean, if you look at the entire set of our liberation and heritage routes, there's a number of private museums that are also there. There's numbers that are run by the city. There's ones that are run by the department. And an ordinary consumer, an ordinary visitor doesn't even get to know these nuances. Apartheid museum is apartheid museum. And I must then have access the same way I had access to Hector Peterson and Freedom Park.
I think it's an interesting topic. But I think one, and that is my personal view, people may have various reasons. I do believe heritage must be for the public and for public good, because we are preserving it for the future. And I suppose we all want the future generation to know where we come from, and they play that role in terms of preservation and taking the legacy forward. There's a need for some sort of alignment.
Yeah.
And I think we need to look at heritage sites not as competitors, but as complementing each other, because it's about telling the story and weaving it together. Yeah. And obviously we're telling it differently, which is also exciting, that you can have various versions. So we need to look at that. However, one of the primary challenges that heritage sites in particular find themselves, it's issues of sustainability. With true. Government grants going down, we are finding ourselves having to fend for ourselves. Yeah. And that unfortunately brings the issue of commercialization. One of the biggest challenges we find ourselves as Freedom Park is creating a balance between access and sustainability. Yes. In fact, our minister currently has challenged us to say he believes Freedom Park should be free for all. And we say we agree, but we believe then government must increase the grant to maintain the space, because it's costly. So,
but equally, that opening in access comes with its own, it might be unintended consequences about the staff, the operations, and many other things that are associated with
yes,
that. Yeah.
You need that because there is fatigue. Yeah. And what we currently do as Freedom Park, because we do get busy, we also host a lot of events to try and expose as many people as possible, even those who may not necessarily be interested in heritage. But when they come for events, then they get ideas to do other things. So what we have introduced is the concept of freelancers.
Okay.
That at a time when we want to rest our staff, then we bring in these young people who are unemployed, whom we have trained on our products. Yeah. So they do come and relieve our staff from time to time. So by so doing, it's also expanding the reach in terms of job creation. But also we make sure our staff is well rested, because we can get exhausted if it is taxing.
And I guess that also expand the knowledge. So now the storytellers, the protagonists, the front-facing pool get expanded.
Yes.
We were freelancing, and which I think is a brilliant way, and I think other sides needs to copy this, because also it creates a sense of belonging. Now you have this 30 freelancers that also regard Freedom Park as home.
Yes.
And the place they work for.
Yes.
Over and above the traditional stuff, but you are also able to identify that there's also a possible recruitment hub in case there's attrition and everything else that comes out of that. And to what extent does this then get shared and paired with the others? Like you were saying, the heritage and the storytelling and articulation of our heritage can't be confined to a space or a specific building. It almost takes a shape of a root. Where this contributed to this, that leads to this. Therefore, the story of union building, the story of the Zwaying crater, the story of all had to do. I mean, I remember when we were starting with the first walk the talk the other year and looking at the route, we had to almost curate a route that the body of Nelson Mandela took to lie in state at the union building, going through the different spaces. The military hospital is not far from there, and everything else. That for me brings into the fore all the other sides.
Yes.
And the need for a single or a coherent management and articulation of the story using Freedom Park as the hub. And then like a spoke and a hub model then thematically distributes to the other side. That automatically gives you a huge role to actually coordinate with the others. What has been the response and some of the challenges having to play that leadership role?
It is challenging, but there is support even from other entities. The example of 702 Walk the Talk.
Yes.
It was deliberate. Obviously, we need more space, but it was deliberate that we partner with UNISA. And we use the Fort Record Monument as an entry. But as you leave Freedom Park, on your left is Kgoshima.
Exactly.
You have just recently, we are talking about Steve Biko.
Yes.
And you have the cell. You have got the where this is the space where Solomon Mahlangu was hanged.
Yeah.
So as you walk, even that walk the talk, then you have the Women's Museum, which obviously does not belong to Freedom Park. So even that route alone for the 702 walk the talk is a historical route.
Absolutely.
And you walk through Sophie de Brain and many.
Yes.
And I think we need to learn also to be curious. Who's this Sophie de Brain?
Yes.
And why do we name a road after her?
Exactly.
And so forth. But what we have also done, especially for young people, which is a program that we are reviving also now at Freedom Park, but it's a long-standing program that we've done. We have established what we call the heritage trails, where we take especially young people through various heritage sites. Then they come back, they reflect, and we have a dialogue in terms of what are the lessons they have learned, what are the experiences, and that exposure. And I think as heritage sites, we need to work together more.
Absolutely.
And collaborate to create that maximum impact.
And now jumping into the importance, especially of hosting events, which others may argue that it leads to the dilution. Museums and heritage sites must be place of solemn. You must get in there depressed and leave out depressed. and I've seen at Freedom Park there's been a deliberate attempt to appreciate the current environment we live in. I get in there, I get to see the whole story, and one thing I need to congratulate you and the team is the ability to understand that there should be a bar there. I can get something to drown my sorrow, and the story that I have, which fits into how people live. You don't live your life like this and then have to travel for another hour to get a place. Now you have forgotten. But if you house everything in there, so long as it's done responsibly, but also it opens up avenue for other commercial collaboration, partnerships, and the like. But the importance of actually hosting, partnering with like-minded events, experiences. I know we had some of the soul sessions there. We had the Kaya and Tibo's playing there the other time. How has been the uptake and the importance of such collaboration, not just as serving as a venue for that event or partnership, but also an extension of the narration of the story in a non-cohesive manner at that particular moment?
I think that's obviously there are those who feel, and we've received that criticism that we are not an event space.
Yeah.
But we're looking at a rethink of the heritage sites, and sometimes, especially in South Africa, it's one of the primary weaknesses where we want to keep museums as this exclusive spaces just for history and heritage. But our view is that we need to integrate that history and heritage into our daily lives and activities. And that is how we'll promote it. Obviously, we need to be careful that we don't commercialize too much, either through events that we lose the essence for what we are established. But we want to create that balance.
Yeah.
And we have seen many people coming for events, then saying, okay, I need to come back.
Yeah.
And see, for example, and walk through the wall of names. And then they're coming for something. Oh, I found the name of my loved one. I'm going to bring back my family. So through that, there are spin-offs. But also, as you're saying, we did a survey and there was criticism. Firstly, Freedom Park is quite big.
Yeah.
It's 52 hectares.
Very
you
huge.
walk a lot.
Yeah.
It's in the hill. When you finish, you're tired, you're thirsty or hungry.
Yeah.
But in that, we're trying to expand the economic spin-offs through the restaurant and the gift
100.
shop. You come, we keep you a bit longer. You have done a tour, but you must still spend a bit more.
And also resting,
yes,
so that you're able to move into other
so
stuff.
there is that, because you want it to become a social space. Even if you're not coming for a tour, you must say, I'm going to Freedom Park for lunch.
Absolutely. And also host events
dinner.
for these dialogues, these conversations. And I guess there's also opportunities on the documenting, because the criticisms about our side also compared, say, to the Americans and the Russians. It's that we don't build them into our everyday lives. Let's take the Pentagon in the US. A lot of people through the creative sector, through movies, films, production, actually know the Pentagon than they know Tabatswani. And they are South Africans, therefore people know, they think they know the White House and the Oval Office, and actually how it's set up, and who removed what portrait from what. Then they know the union buildings and actually the president's office, and that has been through productions and the clever integration of that. Do you see opportunities there, and are you open for such collaborations, with production houses where this then gets imbued into this? I mean, the beautiful narration you have just articulated about what this Freedom Park, represents, and now it's not told by you, who is your day job, to tell it, but it's aggregated through a production, a Netflix blockbuster production about these two freedom and Afrikanerdom structure representing itself. Don't you think that will be a hit?
That will be brilliant. We're actually working on that. We've got few companies that have approached us, but that is our dream actually, and our vision, especially with the wealth of information. Movies can be developed from what we have in our archives. So we've tried it. It didn't uptake initially, but I think one of our proud moments was there was a series called The Republic.
Yes, I remember.
So some of their scenes were shot at Freedom Park.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
And interestingly, we have one or two international companies that have shot also there. It's called Sacred Games. I think it's an Indian soapy or movie. They also shot for a whole week at Freedom Park certain scenes. We're looking for South Africans to do that more.
Absolutely.
Firstly, to come and engage us on the content.
Yes.
which they can develop creatively, the storyline. But also for other things, we have so many soapies, so many series.
Yeah.
If they can look at such
and edutainment, I guess, also edutainment to enhance the current curriculum. Because once it's spread, it's in the textbooks, it's delivered at schools. You will have kids saying, Daddy, if you had taken me there a week ago, I will have aced that test I wrote, and that opens up actually even new markets and profile of visitors that gets into. As we wrap up, are there any global and African collaborations that you are looking at or that you currently have? As I'm looking at this space, not like I've said, not as ivory towers sitting there. Recently, China announced that they are going to build a very big, exclusive African heritage museum in China. And I was like, huh? And China doesn't play. You go big or you go home.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, there lies an opportunity. Actually, can we get Freedom Park to get quickly in there before they even build, so that there is some representation of there, because it's been built in China, and China is very far from the continent. Therefore, how do we leverage that using institutions like BRICS, the G20 platforms like what we're having now? Are you guys working on some global and continental collaboration?
We are, and we're looking to increase that more. And we're taking advantage not just of the G20, but of the BRICS. So we're targeting the BRICS countries. We've done a lot, obviously, with countries like Cuba, like Russia, even China. We've worked with them. Interestingly, when you come to Freedom Park, especially in the museum, you'll find that some of the migrant workers came from as far as China. So China is seriously represented,
integrated in the,
including India as well. So we've done some work, but in the last year we've been the busiest through embassies with collaborations. Even now we are working with also the Embassy of France, the EU as well. We actually have an exhibition on the EU where we're looking at the role that Europe played in the liberation. And of course, some countries prominent, of course, but others through civil society movements and not necessarily as government. So we have those collaborations as far as Germany, partnerships, joint exhibitions, but we're looking at doing that more. We have an MOU with a Ghanaian heritage site, the Pan-African Museum.
Lovely.
In fact, it has also taken that approach. One of our South Africans are also part of the board. The Museum of Black Civilization in Senegal, they actually have some of our artifacts. We have contributed and in the conceptualization of that. So, but we're looking at increasing that more.
Absolutely. So it's quiz time now before we wrap up. And those that are watching, listening to us, this is quiz time. And our quiz for this episode, we spoke about it in this show. Name the Gauteng popular walk event that has taken place over the past 2 years at our majestic Freedom Park site and ending up at the iconic Union Buildings World Heritage Site. Name the iconic famous walk event that has recently taken place at Freedom Park, starting at Freedom Park and ending at the Union Buildings World Heritage Site. Send your answer to Gauteng Lifve at gauteng.net and stand a chance to win some of our spring 2 summer prizes, including a possible visit to Freedom Park, courtesy of our friends and partners at Freedom Park, and some of the goodies from our other partners. So as we conclude, your projects that are collaborative in nature, we have touched on African collaborations, global collaborations, local collaborations, and recently, as early as last November, The Nelson Mandela Legacy series was, finally, after long years, with UNESCO declared, and out of those 13 sites, Gauteng has about 9 or 8.
Yes.
And I guess the facility like the Freedom Park has a big role to equally play in ensuring that that listing remains intact and is sustained. And like again, you also play that capital city role and the role of a National Heritage Museum.
Yes, we're very excited about the nomination. In fact, the listing now is no longer the nomination. Yes. And we are available to assist those sites, especially in the maintenance, in the sustainability, because they need to maintain the standards.
Yeah.
They're going to be monitored now. And as a listed site, when you want new developments, you need to look at the impact.
100.
Not that you are restricted, but there are certain guidelines that needs to be followed. And we are here to assist those that need our assistance. We participated through DSEC in the listing process, in the presentations, and we're excited, we're equally proud.
Yeah.
And I think as South Africans, but also as Gautengers, we should be very proud of ourselves.
I know one of the challenges is, again, and as we deal with brands positioning in this show, it's around, the naming. And sometimes I'll always say people don't visit labels. People don't visit Gauteng Tourism Authority, an agency of the Gauteng Department of Economic Development under Gauteng Provincial Government. It's just so long and tongue-twisting, and they're like, people visit Gauteng. You get what I mean. And yourselves, as a presentation of what, do you find it be challenging in how you are labeled? Is it just Freedom Park, or Freedom Park and the agency of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture?
We just call ourselves Freedom Park, but officially we're Freedom Park and agency of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. So it's a long name, but with a big bold, just Freedom Park.
I guess the policymakers and decision makers, the boards and others, are listening and watching us, and they will assist you in dealing with that challenge as we wrap up. And your favorite food and food space in Gauteng?
My favorite?
Food. Yeah, especially heritage meals. And where do you get it?
My favorite food, it's lamb trotters. And come to Freedom Park, Dendo Zest restaurant. You will never go back.
I saw what you just did there.
I can't get enough of those lamb trotters. Come to Freedom Park, you will come every day.
It's like those lambs are specially brewed and, nurtured at Freedom Park, and they then translate into a meal.
Meal which you will eat every day.
Lamb trotters at Freedom Park, you have heard it. And one song that, in your view, represent the spirit, the tenacity, the zeal, the color, the determination of Gauteng?
Not yet Uhuru. Mam Letambuli. I love the song, but I think the fighting spirit, the resilience.
And the message is clear.
Yes, the message is clear. We must fight on.
We must fight on.
Yes.
It's not yet Uhuru. We must fight on to get more numbers into our heritage site. We must fight on to get our heritage, our history being part of the curriculum that is being taught to our children in our school. We must fight on to ensure that when we mark important days like Reconciliation Day, they are not turned into braai days, but that braai and that gathering represent us reflecting. We must fight on to ensure that we retain the National Heritage Day event at Freedom Park as it was originally designed, and ensure that that becomes the national gathering and a reflection on the path we have traversed and reimagining the future underpinned by our heritage. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast also check our social media platforms. We are at Visit Gauteng on Instagram and also on Twitter. We are at I Love Gauteng on Facebook. Please download the Visit Gauteng mobile app. If you are running a business, you are running an event, you have a product to list, you are able to create your profile, list your businesses there. After quality checks, we are able to flight it and expose it to the millions that are subscribing for free, and that's courtesy of Visit Gauteng. That has been another fascinating episode of Gauteng Lifve, where we share, tell, and engage of everything the visitor economy. Until the next episode, second round.